أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله أشهد أن عليًا بالحق حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وصلى الله على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today in the khutbah of Jum'ah, we will look at some of the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam that pertain to travel. One of the areas of life that is unavoidable is that we sometimes have to leave our home, our city, and travel for work, for education, sometimes for family reasons, sometimes for religious reasons, and increasingly in the present time, but also in past times and in ahadith, for pleasure, for recreation, and for sightseeing. There are a number of teachings of Islam that pertain to travel, its importance, and the adab, the etiquette, and the values that we should maintain with respect to travel. Let us begin with a hadith attributed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in this hadith, the Prophet says, ثَلَاثُ دَعَوَاتٍ مُسْتَجَابَاتٍ. There are 3 du'as that are answered by Allah. Du'a is a call made by a person, and that du'a, when it is shown mercy and accepted by Allah, that is known as istijabatul du'a, the answering of a prayer. And of course, Allah answers those prayers that are worthy of His acceptance in terms of the content of the prayer and in terms of the person who is making that prayer. So what I'm asking Allah for will have an effect on whether Allah will accept it, and my motivation, and also the circumstances of that prayer. Am I somebody who, for example, lies easily? That I have dishonored my own tongue, and that tongue is no longer worthy to be looked upon with favor by Allah? Am I somebody who is always rude or dismissive to other people? If I have dishonored my own tongue in that way, then it is not worthy of being answered by Allah. Now, Allah may in His mercy still accept my prayer, but that is the mercy of Allah and not the worthiness of my own dua. So 3 types of dua are answered by Allah, meaning that these du'as have a special favor. One is da'watul madlum, somebody who is wrong. Allah is going to look with favor on the prayer of somebody who is being oppressed or wronged by somebody, especially when they are praying against the person who is causing that dhulm, or that oppression. وَدَعْوَةُ الْمُسَافِرِ. The second is a person who is on a journey. And one of the aspects of this is that travel is difficult. You're away from your comforts, you're away from your family. Sometimes you have to go through discomfort or hardship, and that might be one of the reasons why Allah looks with greater favor on a person who is traveling. Another is a reminder that in general, Islam encourages us to travel. The Quran encourages us to travel. Siru fil ard. Fanzuru kayfa bada al-khalq. Travel in the earth because this is the creation of Allah. And Allah created it. One of the reasons why Allah created it is for us to observe His creation so we can understand Allah better. Just like if you have a creation that you have made, a story that you have written, a painting that you have made, a project that you have working on, I get to know you better by looking at the work that you have created. Similarly, we get to know Allah more deeply when we look at and we think about what He has created. So Islam has encouraged travel, and the other aspect of this hadith might be that when you are traveling, you are in that way closer to Allah. So you're out of your element and maybe undergoing some hardship, but also you are doing something which is blessed and encouraged in Islam. وَدَعْوَةُ الْوَالِدِ لِوَلَدِهِ. And then the prayer of a parent for their child, or the prayer of a father for their child. That is something that children should especially look for and try to seek. That their parents pray for them. Because the prayer of a parent in favor of their child is closer to being accepted by Allah than our prayer for ourselves. And one of the reasons for that is the amount of love and sincerity that a parent has when they pray for their children is often greater than the sincerity that a person has for themselves. And that's something that those of us who've experienced it from our parents, or who are parents, we can even feel and experience. We don't have to take it on faith. But these are 3 types of prayers that are accepted by Allah. Once again, if you are madloom and you make a dua, and it doesn't just have to be against the person who is oppressing you. When a person is madloom, then they are closer to Allah. So that is the first. The second is al-musafir, a person who is traveling. And the third is a parent. Now all of these, they can be relevant to us. In the first place, I don't want to be a dhalim and oppress somebody, because then their prayer is going to be answered and they might pray against me. They may pray for Allah to take their revenge on me for wronging them. And if I am madloom, then I should think of this as an opportunity. Rather than feeling reactive and passive and victimized, I should feel empowered and recognize that I have agency and take that opportunity to do dua. Dua to end the oppression, but also dua for my family, dua for myself, dua for my community, dua for all of those things that are good, because that is when dua is going to be accepted. Safar is something we always have to do, but sometimes when we are traveling, we become careless. Sometimes in terms of what entertainment we have, what we eat, our prayers, our other good habits that we have at home, we forget them. So travel is also a time to feel closer to Allah. Our dua is accepted at that time. So we should make more dua when we are traveling than we do at normal times. Our prayer becomes shortened, qasr. But our dua should increase, because that is when dua is accepted. And of course, the third is relevant to all of us, whether we are parents, pray for our children. If we are children, seek the prayers of our parents and tell our parents that we need their prayers. We recognize that fact. Ask them for their du'as. Thank them for their du'as. And that is something that is an important part of all of our lives. This was a hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, when we travel, we should make sure that we are arranging our travel in such a way that we can practice our obligations properly. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam says, لا يخرج الرجل في سفر يخاف فيه على دينه وصلاته. Nobody should go on a journey or begin a trip in such a way that they have fear that they will not be able to properly practice deen and salat. So when we are making a plan to travel somewhere, we shouldn't go somewhere where it's going to be a problem. We won't find halal food. We won't know which way is qibla and when to pray, and we won't know where to be able to eat, and so then we compromise our religious practice. And that occurs in all kinds of journey. If it's for business, if we want to move somewhere, then let me make sure that there is a Muslim community, there is something that I can connect to that will strengthen and preserve my identity. Sometimes you have no choice. You have a transfer for work, you have to go somewhere for treatment, and you don't have a choice. A refugee may not have a choice. But most of the time when we're traveling somewhere, we do have a choice. If you're going to college, you can choose where you're going to go. If you have several options for work, then you can choose. If you have a house that you're looking to rent or buy, you're moving, then you can choose where you want to live. So don't travel, don't go. Of course, moving is a long term, but travel is a short term. In both cases, the principle applies. Don't go somewhere where يَخَافُ عَلَى دِينِهِ. You have a fear that your religion is going to be compromised. وَصَلَاتِهِ. And especially for prayer. When we are planning a trip, try to schedule it so that it will be easy for us to perform our prayer properly. This is one of the reasons why it is makruh to travel on Friday before Salatul Jumu'ah. And one of the reasons why it's recommended to travel on Saturday. One of the days that it's recommended to do safar, or to travel, is Saturday. Why? فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةِ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. That when the prayer is complete on Jum'ah, فَانْتَشِرُوا, travel on Saturday. So this helps us attend Jum'ah. If I'm traveling before Jum'ah, then I'm going to miss Jum'ah prayer. This is Quran, and also a hadith affirm the message. So similarly, if I have to travel somewhere to Baltimore, I'm booking a flight, then let me try to book it so either I can pray at home and then leave for the airport, or I arrive at my destination at a time when I can pray, either at the airport or at my destination. At least, sometimes we don't have unlimited options. There's a limited number of available flights at a decent price. But make that one of the factors that I'm leaving at this time, so where am I going to pray Fajr? I'm arriving at this time, so how am I going to pray Dhuhr and Asr? How am I going to pray Maghrib? Keep that in mind, especially when there might be limited time. In the winter, for example, between Dhuhr and Maghrib time, you don't have more than about 4 or 5 hours. So you need to factor that in your decision. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Among the du'as for travel, there is a du'a narrated from Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam in Nahj al-Balagha. And this is a very beautiful reminder from Imam Ali. He says that this is actually one of his own du'as when he would travel. Then he would say these words of du'a to Allah. He would say, Allahumma anta sahibu fi safar. Oh Allah, when I travel, you are my companion in that journey. Wa anta al-khalifatu fil ahl. And you are the one who is staying back with my family. So when we travel, Allah is with us. But Allah is also with our family that we are leaving behind. La yajma'uhuma ghayruk. Oh Allah, nobody but you can be both. Either I can take somebody with me, and they're my companion on the journey. Or I can say, look after my family while I'm gone. But nobody other than Allah can be both at the same time. لأن المستخلف لا يكون مستصحبا والمستصحب لا يكون مستخلفا. The one that you're leaving behind is not with you, and the one that you are bringing is not going to be left behind. People or objects, they're either with you or they're with your family. But Allah is in both places. And of course, that reminder from Imam Ali is for us to put our trust in Allah and to recognize that it's not an alarm system or technology or anything else that is going to be our most important source of safety and protection for ourselves and for those who are not on that journey with us, but it is the care and protection of Allah. Of course, we take our precautions. We might invest in that insurance policy, that alarm system, whatever the case might be, but we put our trust in Allah because He is with us and He is with those that we are leaving behind, and that is the source of our strength and confidence. And when we embark on the journey, in addition to dua, it is recommended that, according to hadith of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam, افتتح سفرك بالصدقة واقرأ آية الكرسي. When you begin a journey, then give sadaqah and recite Ayatul Kursi. So 2 things are recommended. Many of us, this is a custom, but remember, this is not just a tradition, and it's not a superstition. This is the teaching of Islam. Give sadaqah, and that sadaqah also should be something that is in accordance with what we are able to give. So it's not just, for example, a coin that we have laying around, but if we're going on a journey, give something. At the very least, we can give maybe the amount of a meal for one person who may not be able to afford it. Maybe $5 or $10 at a minimum for those who can afford it. If it's difficult for us to afford that much, then anything that we can give for the sake of Allah, it counts as sadaqah. But if we have means, then our sadaqah should not be 50 cents or $1. It should be something that can at least meet the need of the recipient. that we are giving it to, and Ayatul Kursi at the beginning of our journey. Then there are certain things that are recommended for us to avoid. One of the things is that we should not be abrupt with our family when returning from a journey. It's makruh, according to a hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that if you've been traveling, don't just knock on the door at night and expect your family to now go out of their way to have dinner ready or other things ready. Now, this was, of course, in a time before phones, before this regular kind of communication. So if somebody had gone to another city, then it wouldn't always be clear what day they're coming or what hour of the day they're coming. And if somebody comes unexpectedly, then family might not be ready. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that if you come, especially at night when people may be resting, they may have already put away the food, put away their daily things that they use during the day, then don't come حَتَّى يُؤْذِنَهُمْ, unless you let them know. In the past, letting somebody know would be maybe sending one person from the caravan ahead to give the information. Today it's much easier. The message then is let your family know when you are expecting to arrive. For most of us, that simply means a phone call, sending a text message, the flight is late, should be arriving at this time, or driving, I stopped, should be arriving at this time. So it's recommended to give Azan, meaning the message to your family, when you are going to arrive. Another recommendation that we have is with regard to our zad. Zad are the provisions you take with you when you travel. And it is highly recommended to have some attention and take abundant provisions and take good provisions, so that your journey you have good food. In one hadith it says, even take any medicine that you think you might need if you fall sick during the journey. So make sure that you are well stocked with the things that you need. And if you're taking food, then the hadith says, يُطَيِّبْ زَادَهُ, take good food. So healthy, wholesome, and abundant provisions with you when you travel. In one hadith narrated from the Prophet, Zadul Musafir, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Zadul Musafir al-Huda'u wa-Shi'r. One of the things that is a provision for a traveler is huda. Huda, some of you may have heard that sometimes in Persian or Urdu poetry they say hudi, hudi khan. The word in Arabic is huda, and it was that poetry that was recited especially by those who would travel with a camel. That poetry would help the camel also travel with more regularity and attention. وَالشِّعْرِ. And the Prophet says that also poetry. مَا كَانَ مِنْهُ لَيْسَ فِيهِ خَنَا. Of course, that poetry that is worthy and doesn't contain any kind of nonsense or any kind of unworthy sort of mention. So, when you travel, it is recommended to have something to entertain your thought, your mind, some interesting literature, especially poetry. That poetry, though, look for poetry that is uplifting. And it is a good idea for us to have even a playlist of, if we're traveling by plane, you can read it. If you're driving, then you can listen to it. Poetry that is about Ahlul Bayt, about spiritual topics, or just about entertaining topics, but that is worthy poetry. Laysa fihi khana. And that keeps you entertained, makes the time pass faster, and it also refreshes your spirit and your body as you are traveling. So we will stop there. There are a number of other ahadith that give us some of the adab of travel, which inshallah we will complete in the next khutbah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَإِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرَ فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ إِنَّا شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Abil Qasim Muhammad. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما علي أمير المؤمنين وعلى فاطمة الزهراء وعلى الحسن والحسين وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين صلوات. In the second khutbah, I begin by asking Allah for His forgiveness for myself and for all of us present and all mu'mineen and mu'minat throughout the world. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our intentions, our words, our actions from anything that is unworthy of a believer. I ask Allah for His protection for all of us and for all mu'mineen and mu'minat from those who have ignorance about Islam, for those who have prejudice against Islam or against Muslims in this country or anywhere else in the world. And may Allah protect us from sickness, from economic hardship, and from trials and hardships in our persons and in our families. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us on the path of our beloved Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi and Ahlul Bayt of our Prophet. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Just a note with regard to our prayer time, we've moved the time for Salatul Jumu'ah to 12:30 because several members of our community said that it's difficult to come at 12 o'clock based on work schedules and travel times. So for the convenience and to ensure that people can benefit from attendance at Jum'ah and also from the khutbah and the salat, we've moved the prayer time to 12:30. Some of our fuqaha, they do say that the Jum'ah should be recited as close as possible to Azan of Dhuhr. So as we did today, I will try to conclude the khutbahs by 1 o'clock. I will keep the khutbahs somewhat shorter. We will recite Salat al-Jumu'ah, and those of you who would like, I will leave time to recite Salat al-Dhuhr as a precaution. So when you've done Salat al-Jumu'ah, that's sufficient. Some of you who will pray Salat al-Jumu'ah, you have time now for ta'qibat, for dua, or tasbih. And those of you who would like, as a precaution, or based on your taqleed, to do Salat al-Dhuhr, you can do 4 rak'at Salat al-Dhuhr, qurbatan ilallah, and then we will pray Salat al-Asr in Jama'ah as well. So this is what we will do for the coming weeks. Jum'ah will begin at 12:30 to allow for more participation. And of course, the goal of Jum'ah is for us to remind ourselves of our community and pray together, and also to be able to benefit from the teachings of Prophet Muhammad and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. Muhammad, these teachings were not there just for books, they were there for us to learn and then to practice. So to facilitate that, we have changed the time, but in order to make sure that everybody is able to perform the prayer correctly, we will leave that a little bit of additional time, a few minutes, for those who would like to pray Salatul Dhuhr after Jumu'ah. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me after the service today. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i bil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'idhukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Anna Aliyyun waliyullah. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد كذلك الله ربنا الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا ذا الجلال والإكرام، يا ذا النعماء والجود، يا ذا المن والطول، حرم شيبتي على النار. اللهم أحدني من عندك وأفض علي من فضلك وانشر علي من رحمتك وأنزل علي من بركاتك. إلهي هذه صلاتي صليتها لا لحاجة منك عليها ولا رغبة منك فيها، إلا تعظيما وطاعة وإجابة لك إلى ما أمرتني به. إلهي إن كان فيها خلال أو نقص من نيتها أو قيامها أو قراءتها أو ركوعها أو سجودها فلا تباخذني، وتفضل علي بالقبول والغفران برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد.
صلاة العصر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر بحول الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم أحينا حياة محمد وذريته وأمتنا مماتهم وتوفنا على ملتهم واحشرنا في زمرتهم ولا تفرق بيننا وبينهم طرفة عين أبدا في الدنيا والآخرة اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته سبحان الله والحمد لله سبحان الله والحمد لله سبحان الله الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إن مغفرتك أرجى من عملي وإن رحمتك أوسع من ذنبي. اللهم إن كان ذنبي عندك عظيما فعفوك أعظم من ذنبي. اللهم إن لم أكن أهلا أن أبلغ رحمتك فرحمتك أهل أن تبلغني وتسعني لأنها وسعت كل شيء برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام على علي أمير المؤمنين. السلام على فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام على الحسن والحسين وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. اللهم صل على محمد. Just one announcement before we depart. This Sunday, inshallah, at 3 p.m., we will have a virtual event on YouTube on Muhammad Iqbal. He was a very important figure in Islamic thought in the early part of the 20th century, anti-colonial and reviving Islamic civilization, a lover of Ahlul Bayt. So that event is something that will, inshallah, be the first of a series of events on Islamic literature and poetry and the aspect of Islamic civilization that talks about the beauty and the unifying aspects of Islam. So please do join us. Some of the poetry recited will be in Urdu, but we will have translation in English, and the talks will, inshallah, be in English. So please make a note of it, join us, and also share the information with others so that we can have events to reintroduce our communities to Islamic art, expression, and poetry, inshallah. Jazakallah.